Welcome, Elena and Reyna Aburto to the Leading Saints podcast.
Well,
Yeah,
thank you
thanks.
for inviting us.
Nice, and we're here. I want to do this in studio since you don't live too far away from here. So I thought,
No.
well, hey, I know of a studio. Let's
Yes.
get in the room and chat. Now, Reyna, maybe just people, well, generally probably, where have I seen her from? But maybe just introduce yourself and.
Yes, well, I was born in Nicaragua, came to the United States at the age of 21, joined the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in San Francisco, California, when I was 26. After going through a divorce, had a small child, and then I moved to Utah a few years later, and I've been very busy in the church, and recently I was released from the General Relief Society Presidency.
Awesome.
I was a counselor, the second
Nice.
counselor there.
With President Bingham and
Sister
Sister
Eubank.
Eubank.
Yes.
Yeah, awesome. They're on my list. Hopefully, we
Yes,
can
okay.
we can get them on the podcast as well. But and Elena, put yourself into context.
Okay, sure. I'm going to grad school at UVU right now. I'm learning how to teach choir in secondary schools. And I got my bachelor's degree in BYU, Idaho with a degree in piano. And
And she's my daughter.
yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, yes, we know each other.
You hang out sometimes. That's good.
Yeah, I don't know. I work at a junior high as a choir accompanist.
Nice. So passion in music. It sounds
Yeah,
like.
that is my thing.
When did that start?
Since I was born,
Yeah.
right?
I listened to a lot of music when I was pregnant.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that
In
must
the
have been
womb.
it.
I
Now-
don't know, because we really, my husband, he plays the drums by ear.
Mhm.
And we
Really?
listen to a lot of music, but I'm not, I'm totally musically illiterate.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Nice.
But yeah, so they put me in piano lessons when I was 6, and yeah, I've loved it ever since then. So
Yeah.
Now, and sometimes you'll get online on social media and
Oh,
you'll
yeah.
sing, and it's one thing like lots of people sing, and it's like, oh yeah, this will be great. Or you hear like a sacrament meeting solo, and like,
Mhm.
oh great, it's great that they're singing, but you're like, oh no, like she can really sing, like you have a great voice, and
thank you.
and you're just, I mean, whether it's in your DNA or in the womb, or but that's your passion then.
Yeah.
Cool.
No, I didn't even start singing in front of people until like 2 years ago, I feel like. So
Yeah.
Nice, nice.
Yeah.
So I want to ask this question, but we'll start with from your perspective, Elena. Is when did you find out about your mom's calling in the General Relief Society Presidency? How
Oh
did
my
that? What's the
gosh.
story
Oh my
there?
gosh.
That is a big
okay,
story.
That's a story. Okay. So it was right after I served my mission. I came home on a Wednesday, and General Conference in April was a few days after I came home, that same Saturday. So my mom was like, we have tickets to General Conference because Joy Jones gave us tickets, and Joy Jones was like the primary
friend.
president at the time, and she was a friend, and so that was a totally believable lie.
It was not a lie. It was actually Jim Bingham.
Oh,
You
was
did
it?
have
Yeah.
tickets,
Okay,
and you were
sure.
going, right?
Okay.
Because yes,
Yes.
President Bingham was in the primary
Mhm.
presidency,
Yes,
right?
Oh,
yes.
okay.
She's the one who gave me.
Oh,
the
okay.
tickets, yeah.
Well, either way, I
Yeah.
was, but yeah. So we sat like there at the very front.
Yeah, like great seats.
Yeah.
You're like, this is wow.
And yeah, and then Elder Uchtdorf like read my mom's name, and I just started bawling. I had no idea.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, she wasn't allowed to tell me, so
Yeah.
I found out when everybody else did.
And then suddenly she was walking towards
Yes.
the red chairs, right?
Scary
Nice.
walk.
Nice, that's fun.
Yeah.
And for you, Reyna, where's the story begin for that calling?
I think it began a long time ago, around 2010, because I served as a volunteer at the Relief Society building. They had like a resource room in the basement.
And how did you get into that?
Well, because I was called as a Stake Relief Society president here in Orem. And they had, back then they used to have like trainings for stake leaders in Utah. And I went to one of those trainings, and I received a flyer that they were looking for volunteers for the Relief Society building. But you had to be either a Stake Relief Society president, or a Stake Young Women president, or a Stake Primary president.
Oh, wow.
So because I was going to get that calling, I mean, it was a new calling for me. I decided to offer myself. To be honest with you, it was really the Spirit. I really didn't want to do it because I live in Orem. I didn't want to go to Salt Lake. But I kept having this feeling that I needed to offer myself as a volunteer. So I went. I was there for about 2 years, working like every 2 weeks.
And so what would you do? I mean, you weren't vacuuming or like, I'm
No.
thinking volunteers, like usually it's like
It's
to
like
clean
a
the building.
hostess.
Okay.
A hostess.
So people
yeah.
would walk in and you'd be there to
Yes.
greet them. And then you
Yes.
could speak from the point of being a
Yes.
Relief Society president.
Yes,
Okay.
and they had like different kinds of exhibits there. So you will explain to people if they needed help.
Oh, cool.
So it was just being there. It was a very nice time for me. I would read the scriptures, talk to the other sisters that were there. It was very nice. So I did that for about 2 years. And after that, Sister Julie Beck, who was the Relief Society General President, invited me to a focus group. I went there. I said some things that they asked us to talk about. And then a few months after that, Sister Wixom gave my name to be part of the primary general board.
Okay. And they now call that the General Counsel or what?
But right
what's-
now it's called the
Advisory.
General Council, Advisory Council.
Advisory Council. That's
yes.
right. That's
But
right.
it was called a board before. So I served there for 4.5 years.
And how would you describe that experience? What does that
it
entail?
was amazing because you work directly with the general presidencies, and you do, we would do instructions in Utah, Idaho. They even sent me to Mexico in a special assignment. But you meet with the presidency like every 2 months. You work in the committees. They assign you to work in committees, and it was just beautiful to be there and to get to know how they function. And Sister Jo Jones and Sister Jean Bingham were part of that board.
Oh, I see.
And we worked together in different committees, and that's how we got to know each other. Sister Wixom was released in 2016. Sister Joy Jones became the primary president, and Sister Bingham was her counselor. But then Sister Bingham was called as the Relief Society president 1 year later in 2017.
Gotcha.
So I guess she gave my name, and that's how I got there.
Nice.
Yeah, it's a long story, but it
Yeah.
all started with that prompting of me offering myself as a volunteer, which I didn't want to do really.
Mhm.
My mind kept telling me it doesn't make sense, but my heart kept telling me you need to do it.
Yeah. Wow.
And it's one of those things that, I felt that I needed to follow that prompting.
Yeah. Now, and going into one of those general presidencies, there's some presidencies where the counselors, they don't know each other, or the president, this is sort of their first
yes.
interaction together, but they felt prompted or led that
Yes.
way. But you walked into that presidency with a friendship with
Yes.
Sister
yes.
Eubanks and
Yes.
President Bingham.
Yeah, Sister Eubank, she actually was a member of the general board under Relief Society with Sister Beck.
Mhm.
And because she was an employee, of the church, or because of the position that she had as the LDS Charities director, Latter-day Saint Charities director, we will have some kind of relationship. So I knew her already, but we bonded even more with the
That's great.
presidency. Yes.
What do you remember just walking into that role as far as getting started? Because there is sort of this, and any presidency feels that there was a presidency before that everybody respects, and they don't want to make any drastic changes per se to, because they want to respect sort of the direction
Yes.
that the last presidency was on. So how do you begin? What do you remember from those early days in that role as a
Well,
presidency?
of course, it's scary.
Yeah.
Especially if you look at everything that you have to do. They immediately they give you a list of the things that the presidency needs to do, all the different committees that they belong to. And one of the first things that we did was to Sister Bingham, the three of us determining who was going to be in charge of what. It was scary, but then you realize that you have a whole team of people around you supporting you. And then the thing is that what you feel that you're doing in there is supporting, the brethren, supporting the first presidency, supporting the quorum of the 12, but at the same time counseling together with them. Everything that is done in the church at that level, it's a council. You belong to councils, you talk to them, they give you advice, they ask you for advice, and you do it together. And that was a beautiful thing to see.
Yeah. Is there anything I'm intrigued by that dynamic between, the brethren and the General Relief Society presidency, because there's a similar dynamic maybe happening on a ward level with
Yes.
a Relief Society presidency working with a bishopric.
Yes.
What advice would you give to maybe those two presidencies or the bishopric working together more effectively?
I would say that we need to remember that we are trying to find or to look for the Lord's will, that we should not have a personal agenda, because if we have a personal agenda, that gets in the way of revelation and inspiration. Something that I learned, early on as I participated in those councils, is that if I had a feeling, if I had felt that I needed to say something, I will say it, and then I will let go of it. I will put it on the table, and then it didn't belong to me anymore. It was part of the council. And if it was something that maybe didn't go through per se, I didn't mind, because it was just a conversation that we were having. And of course, you need to prepare yourself. That's another thing. You need to prepare yourself for that council. And it's beautiful because over there, they will send you the agenda. They will send you any reference material that you need to read, or the things that you're going to discuss. They send it to you ahead of time so you can read and prepare and even counsel with your presidency. I will do that sometimes. I will tell Sister Bingham and Sister Eubank, we're going to talk about this in this meeting, and these are the topics. What can you tell me? You do it as a counsel with them, as a counsel with the Lord. You ask for that help from heaven, and then you go there and then you listen to everyone, and it's a beautiful feeling to know that your points of view are respected, that you can also see why some people will think in a way, or others will say something else, and then all together, then we could do something even better.
Yeah. That's fascinating. Elena, I'm curious with your experiences, suddenly your mom is, in these, there are pictures on the news, or she's on the poster of the general officers, right? What sort of conversations did you have at home? I mean, how did you approach that as the daughter? Obviously, it's the business of these councils and things, but how did that change your relationship?
Oh, that's such an interesting question. I don't even know if it did.
Yeah.
Did it? Because I feel like we're still a normal family.
Yeah.
But I mean, it was fun to see people recognize her at the grocery store and stuff.
Your mom's suddenly famous.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, but I think it improved our relationship because, we will talk about serious things many times.
Yeah.
And I will ask for advice at the dinner table. You don't need to say a lot of details sometimes. You just need to ask, what do you think about this? What have you seen with your friends? What did you see in your mission? How do you think this will work? You don't need to really give a lot of details, but you can get feelings and insights from other people.
Yeah.
I will even ride the train from Orange to Salt Lake many times, most of the time. And I will talk to a lot of college students there. Students going to the U or to BYU or to Ensign College or to UVU, back and forth. And I will have conversations with them, and I will ask them questions without telling them exactly what was happening. There were some things that were confidential that I could not tell.
Sure.
But I could ask questions. And even if I was writing a talk, how would this resonate with you? What would resonate with you? Things like that.
Yeah.
And I did that with my children also.
Yeah.
For sure.
Especially, Elena, you're in the YSA demographic, and man, there's a lot of parents out there losing sleep over that demographic, and so I'm sure there's a lot to learn there. And I think in all leadership roles, there's this interesting informal council process that happens where whether it's between a bishop and his wife, talking about something happening in the ward, or they have this plan, and man, suddenly when I talk to my kids about it, things start to open up and fall into place, right? And so it's interesting just to recognize that there's a lot going on as far as that inspiration that then becomes sort of finalized in these formal councils, right? Yeah.
The thing is that I think that in families you have this level of intimacy, and it will happen to me that if I was writing a talk for General Conference, the first draft that I wrote, because I had to write several drafts, I would show it to my children. And they knew that was confidential information that they could not tell anybody. And in families, you have that. There are some things that that you cannot talk outside that protective environment that you have at home. And my children helped me so much in so many ways. I didn't tell them everything, but I told them enough that they could help me. But they knew that they needed to respect that confidentiality.
Yeah.
They knew that what I was going to talk about in General Conference, but they didn't say anything until it came out.
Nice. How many General Conference talks did you give?
I gave 4.
4. And just talk to me about that initial, that experience, or, maybe by the fourth one, you're feeling like, I'm a little more confident in standing up here and delivering and whatnot. But especially, just that process with using your family and like getting to the topic even, right? Because you're not assigned a topic, from what I understand. You receive a letter, tells you when you're speaking and be ready, right?
Yes.
So what comes to mind about that first process of speaking in general conference?
Well, let me go back a little bit, because it happened to me that, I was interviewed by President Eyring for the calling, and then I was sustained. And of course, I say yes, I was sustained. And about 2 weeks later, we were at home, just sitting there, and all of a sudden it hit me. And I realized that I had to speak in general conference. I didn't think about that before I say yes. And then I just had like a panic attack. And I never have those. That was probably the only one that I have had in my life. And I thought, I have to speak in general conference. I don't think I can do that. My English is so bad. I don't think I can do it. No. But then, like 20 seconds later, I felt this peace, and I felt something like a feeling that said, you're not going to do it alone. You're not going to do it alone. You're going to have help.
Yeah.
I will help you.
Wow.
So that was such a beautiful experience for me, because from that time I knew that whenever the time came, I would receive a lot of help. So yes, another interesting thing is that you can have a lot of thoughts, as you visit other countries, as you visit different church units, as you have conversations on the train and your home and with people, thoughts come to your mind, and you have some topics that are closer to your heart. But you cannot really decide until you receive that assignment. It's amazing how that happens. You receive a letter from the First Presidency assigning you to speak in General Conference. And when you receive that assignment, that's when the revelation comes more clearly. And even then, you need to decide the topic. And I remember having probably 3 or 4 every time, but I would counsel with my presidency, and I would ask them, which one do you think it would be better right now? And they will give me help with that. But yeah, the process is amazing. Each of them was different. Each of them came about in a different way. For some, I had to prepare more, like the one that I gave about emotional issues. That was probably the one which I spent more time.
Yeah.
I received the assignment end of June of that year, and we usually will have the whole month of July off. We didn't have to go to Salt Lake. And I think that break was about 5 weeks that year. The whole 5 weeks. Full time.
Yeah.
I spent preparing for that talk.
So no break. You still had it.
Yeah, we didn't go anywhere that year. But I would read and write and read and write and try to decide what were the things that I needed to say. And I could feel the hand of the Lord.
Yeah. I
could feel it. And even on the train, as I was deciding, trying to decide what topic, people would talk to me about that subject. And I saw it as an assurance and as a sign that, yes, I needed to talk about that.
Wow, that's powerful. Elena, what about from your perspective? I mean, did you talk about it before she gave you the first draft, or what was that like?
Yeah, I don't remember like helping you choose the topics, but
You didn't try and feed her on like, hey, you should talk.
I probably should have, right? Here's what I want to hear. No, I would help her with her drafts though. And I mean, I'm laughing because I just remember my dad once was like, I'm so sick of this talk. Like, you got to hurry up and give it. I'm so sick of reading it. But yeah, no, that one about emotional issues is the one that I really love the most.
And that was the first one, right?
Second.
The second.
Yeah.
And that's where you talk about your dad.
Yes.
Yeah, right.
Mm-hmm.
Because, well, first of all, like, not to brag or anything, but I think I was the one who inspired you to write that one, because I had a really hard time with depression and anxiety.
Okay, let's back up. Like, tell me more about that.
Okay.
How that came to be.
So, well, I guess, like, when I was on my mission, that's when she started researching more about mental health, because she didn't know how to help me with my problems, and she wanted to. So I guess that kind of sparked it for you initially.
Yes.
And then when you got the assignment, you were like, oh, like, a lot of people are suffering with this. Like, we need to talk about it more.
Yes. Yes, and she even allowed me to use her story.
Yes.
Because I talked about her, and I told her, is it okay if I talked? Because it's better when you have a personal connection with it. And she said yes. And I asked her several times, are you sure? Because a lot of people are going to hear this. And she said, yes, you can tell people about my struggles. And so I'm so grateful because she was vulnerable too. She allowed me to use her story.
Nice. And so you reviewed that one a few times, I imagine.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And you listened to it several times.
Yes. No, actually, the first time that I read the draft, I literally could not stop crying because I was like, it's going to help so many people. And ever since then, people have told you how much it's helped them and stuff. And
No, but the thing is that I will also have to practice my English.
Oh, that's what it was. Yes. Okay. She had to practice her English, and so she made me record myself reading the talk, and I'm literally sobbing while I'm reading it. And so every time that she would listen to my recording,
I would cry.
Yes.
Yes, because I wanted to hear the English and kind of imitate, the pronunciation, because English is my second language.
Right.
Of course, you noticed that already.
Oh, really?
all of your listeners already noticed. It's not a problem with the sound, people. It's my accent. The thing is that I will listen to it, over and over and over. But then she will cry and I will cry.
Nice.
And that helped me because I cried so many times over it. That
you got it out of your system? Yeah.
Yes, when I gave it over the pulpit, I didn't cry.
Wow.
And she even told me, how could you do that without crying? I said I was a little bit kind of sick and tired of it. No, I was not, but you
No, yeah.
you do it so much.
I think a lot of leaders can relate to that of the stake presidency they've been planning this conference for 6 months and it's let's just get this behind us so we can move on, right?
Yes.
And I think it's sort of a funny story, but at the same time, I think that's if there's someone who's maybe more emotional, at the lectern type of thing, work it through, in private enough that you can maybe stand up there with more confidence, knowing that your body's sort of mourned over the topic.
Yes. And the thing is that you have to send it 3 weeks before General Conference. Someone asked me that question this weekend, by the way. She said, well, how do you know when you're ready? And I said, well, you have a deadline.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
And you have to send it because they need to translate it and prepare.
Yeah.
And so 3 weeks before is the deadline. Of course, you can send it before, but I don't know if anybody does.
Yeah, right.
The thing is that then during those 3 weeks, you already sent it. You already gave that offering to the Lord in a way. And then what I will do those 3 weeks is prepare in a different way. I will prepare physically, mentally, emotionally, because I knew that the delivery was important. Mm-hmm. So again, I will listen to it over and over, and I will practice it, and then I will do exercises, stretching exercises, especially that morning, just to make sure that I was relaxed. I will stretch my mouth because, when I speak English for a long time,
experience comes into play, right?
And I will do all those things. And then I understood, those scriptures that say that we need to serve the Lord with all our mind and strength.
Yeah.
I understood that because it was not just writing the talk, but it was also the delivery. It was the preparation to make sure I was ready. And it's such a beautiful thing. Yeah. To know that you're preparing for that because it's important. A lot of people are going to listen to it. They're going to study those words. It's a big responsibility.
Yeah. And that's so helpful just because there are people out there who are really nervous just about speaking in a sacrament meeting, let alone state conference or something. And to know, and I think a lot of times we think, okay, let me read it one more time, right? Yes. When in reality, maybe you just need to go in a room by yourself and breathe for a minute or stretch or, go for a hard run the night before or whatever it is, right?
Yeah. And you have listened to it so much and you have read it so much that you already know it. And you know the parts that you probably can go a little bit faster and the parts where you probably need to emphasize and make a little pause. It's just like a song. You kind of get to know it. And that is beautiful. But I think that applies to everything that we do in life. If we really prepare for something that is hard, then it's not as hard. Yeah. But I remember also somebody gave me this advice. They say, when you give your talk, Reyna, don't think about the thousands of people that will listen to it. Think about the one. Just talk to one person. You can even picture one person in your mind as you're reading that part. And because you have screens, people maybe don't know this, but you have screens, with the teleprompter, and you are reading it. You don't really see the faces of people. You are just reading it. And I will do that. Sometimes I will picture Elena in my mind. I was talking to her. I was talking to my grandson when I talked about the butterflies, and and different people, friends, who during COVID that I spoke about the resurrection. I was talking to a friend who lost his father during a part of the talk. So I was talking to one person.
Wow, that's powerful. That's really helpful.
And that really helps you.
Yeah.
Because it's not really thousands. You're not talking to thousands. You're talking to one person at a time.
Yeah.
And they don't see you like, oh, I'm part of 5,000 sitting here, No, you're talking to me. And I think it happens in every circumstance that we have opportunities like that.
Yeah. And going back to some of the topics you covered, especially that one about mental health. And you talked, Elena, you mentioned this before we record, just this important leadership principle of vulnerability. And we talk a lot about it on Leading Saints, and I think conceptually we can understand it, like, yes, I need to be more vulnerable. But then, like, when you're standing in front of Relief Society on Sunday, you're like, I don't know how to, you start crying, like, I don't know how to be vulnerable, right? So maybe talking just from a principle standpoint and is why you think vulnerability is so crucial.
Well, for me, it's important because I literally don't relate to my leaders unless they tell me something vulnerable, because I'm the kind of person who feels like everybody else is doing amazing and I'm doing a really bad job of living my life. And so I love when leaders, or anyone in the church really, when they open up about something that they're struggling with. So for example, for me, it was really crucial that one of my young women leaders, when I was a teenager, she opened up about how she was struggling with depression and she went to therapy for it. Because a few years later, when I was like 18 or 19, I wasn't in Young Women's anymore, but I was struggling hardcore with depression, and I didn't want to go to therapy because I was like, that's for crazy people. But knowing that she had said that to us, like, I went to her and I was like, hey, I'm really struggling with this. What should I do? And she like suggested all these things, and including going to therapy. And so she really helped me because she was vulnerable. And so I've tried to do the same thing. Like, I've been in Relief Society presidencies a few times now, and I've tried to just like be honest about how like sometimes my life is really hard and I don't know what I'm doing. And so like I just am really honest with the sisters in doing that.
Yeah. And was there encouragement, like on the first draft, was there maybe not enough vulnerability, or
oh yes,
you encouraged that maybe a little bit?
Maybe. Yes, in the last one, remember the first draft, after you first read the first draft?
Oh yeah,
of your last general conference?
I was telling my mom, like, no, like less doctrine, more application, like more stories. And so you included the story about the
several
friend.
Stories,
Okay. Yeah.
I had a lot of doctrine and just theory, And then when she read the first draft, she said, you need to include more stories. And I have like 3 stories in there now.
Yeah.
Or I did that because she said, you need to be more, to apply it more,
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that there's like this, especially with speaking, there's this, it's important to establish the doctrine and teach it, but if you can't just say doctrinal phrases and have it connect, it's through these personal stories, the narrative that sort of kicks the human brain into gear and absorbs it, right?
The connection is different.
Yeah.
We need to talk about doctrine. You know, we need to talk about the principles and in a clear way. But when we connect it with the real life, then it's more powerful.
Right.
And people remember the stories more. And then they will also, it's just like the parables that the Lord used. They can even interpret them differently according to what they are going through. But people remember the stories more, and then the connection with the doctrine they would remember too.
And what I appreciated like about how you approach this in your talks, and probably just in your ministry in general, is I think a church leader can think, oh, you know what, mental health is a concern. We should talk about that more. So maybe we'll do a 5th Sunday lesson and we'll talk about mental health, and I'll show some statistics and talk about it generally. But then there's like another layer of like, no, we're actually going to get into real life stories. And then I think there's an additional level of be like, I'm going to tell my story or my dad's story or my daughter's story. Right. And it's be like, this is real for me. And that's, I think, the dynamic that draws people in and be like, oh, like they're mortal like me. Maybe I can sit with this leader and they'll understand me more deeply.
It's like ministering to them, where is comfort in those that need comfort? Like, we have covenanted that. because when you tell someone that you're struggling, they realize, like Elena said, that they are not the only ones. That we are all struggling with something, and then we can connect better, and we can help each other better. And I think that I need to clarify that I think that we need to do it. We need to follow the Spirit when we are vulnerable, because sometimes we could go to the extreme of oversharing, right? And sometimes it's uncomfortable. I have been in those situations also. We need to know where we are and who we are talking to, and then share accordingly. Because sometimes we could also overdo it. Yeah.
Anything else around that topic we haven't covered? Is that it?
Well, I don't know. I just have a story coming to mind. Like you can cut this out if it's like it has nothing to do with anything. But I was just remembering that, like, so one time when I was serving in the Relief Society Presidency, I was informed about a sister in my ward who was having suicidal thoughts. And so I immediately just like started texting her and reaching out to her and stuff. And I mean, yeah, I was a little vulnerable with her too. Like, I didn't tell her that I knew that what was going on, but I just told her, like, hey, like, I have some bad days too, so I just want you to know that you can reach out to me whenever you're having a bad day. And yeah, like, she told me that, like, by me just reaching out, that was really helpful for her. But like a few weeks ago, I was having a really hard time, and I like to just minister to people when I'm struggling, because that way, like, I feel better about myself. So I reached out to her, even though I was the one having a bad day. I reached out to her and I was like, hey, like, let me know how I can help you. But she kind of turned it around and was like helping me, and she really opened up to me about things, and like let me know that how I was feeling was okay. And it was just like, I don't know, it was just so beautiful, because like I reached out to her not expecting anything in return, but her, like, the fact that it was like a two-way thing in the end was just so amazing to me. I don't even know why like this came to my mind, but just I think, like, my point is, I really wish that we would prioritize people with mental health issues more, because I feel like people with physical ailments, like, will rush to their help immediately if somebody's in the hospital or something. But, like, mental health literally, like, drives us to having suicidal thoughts, though. And that's, like, really serious. And I don't know. I prioritize people with mental health issues personally. Yeah.
Well, what I learned from that, as you say that, is that, you know, that two-way connection, right? And this is, sometimes as a leader, we want to be the one that's got the ability to make the casserole and bring it over. And maybe there's sort of that season where, yeah, you're the person giving a hand up, but that can sometimes change, right? And it's less of a, whether you're higher or lower, but more of like, we're a community here of people who've connected because of vulnerability, and now we can help each other because we're going to experience different things at different times, right? And so that's really, I think, the community that church leaders want to foster in a organization, right?
And we also need to be willing to accept help. And to ask for help. Because sometimes we want to be seen like this person that has everything under control, and your life is, you know, is okay, and you can do it yourself, and you need to be self-reliant, and which is a good thing. But many times we reach that level of being self-reliant by asking for help.
Right.
From heaven first, you ask from Heavenly Father and the Savior, applying the atonement of Jesus Christ in our life, but also through other people.
Right.
Because that's the way they help us. Most of the time. Is through other people.
And I think that connects to, Elena, your emphasis on mental health is that, you know, self-reliance, a part of self-reliance is asking for help. And I do, you know, a lot of men's retreats and whatnot. And one thing we just constantly hit again and again is, men, you need to reach out. Like, it's sort of this attack on masculinity. Sometimes we're like, I don't need help, I'm good, right? And I know women experience it in a different way, but that it's that knowing that part of self-reliance is saying, I just am having a hard day, I need to sit with somebody or talk something through, right? And that's an important concept of mental health, rather than being self-reliant financially. Yeah, maybe you do need to get a job and be more self-reliant or whatever it is, but mental health is maybe not that cut and dry, you know? So let me ask about, Elena, you brought this up as we were sort of putting a general outline together, this, because you, Reyna, you've emphasized the importance of councils, especially in leadership, coming together, getting that revelation going, right? And sometimes in a ward council, for instance, you want to focus on people, but you end up talking about people, and they're not even in the room, and you know, we sort of have an idea of what's going on in people's lives, but not fully. And you maybe introduce this concept of maybe we can't just stop at talking about people.
Yes. So yeah, we believe really strongly in counseling with people instead of just about them. And so yeah, I've seen that in my mom. Like she will visit like YSA wards, or like you'll go to ward councils and stuff.
When I had the call.
Yeah, sorry, you used to.
Yes.
But yeah, no, I like that my mom was always there and reminding the leaders, hey, like you should be talking to the YSA directly, asking them like how they feel about things instead of just counseling about them.
Yes, because sometimes they will ask me questions like, how can we make them so they want to do this or not that? And I would say, ask them. Ask them.
Yeah. And I love this concept of like, because it's easy, you just, you know, get in the rhythm of different meetings and councils, and you know, every second Sunday we have a ward council, and you forget that as a ward council you're so focused on these different problems or these different people that you forget that there's a whole entire ward of resources to help that. And I often say, like, it's not, the leader's role isn't necessarily to reveal the answer, but to bring the problem to the people and say, what do we do with this, right? And it's easy to just get it's sort of in that silo of the ward council and talk about sometimes people, right? But to come together like in a relief society and say, you know, we'll get to Sister Aburto's talk in just a minute here, right? But let's come together and talk like about A, B, and C and counsel together. Like what comes to mind?
The General Handbook actually says that there can be a council before Elders Quorum or Relief Society, and even with the youth. You know, in every setting of the church, we can actually counsel together, because when sisters will tell me how, you know, the sisters don't want to minister to each other, how can we help them? My advice was always counsel with them, tell them that this is a concern that you have, and ask them how you can do it better. And try to also focus on the principles. Why do we do this? Why do we minister to each other? We are trying to follow the 2 great commandments, right? Which are to love God and also to love our neighbor. If we love God, we will love our neighbor more. If we not love our neighbor, we will love God more. But we need to go and show it. But we also need to ask people how they want to be ministered to. I don't think that I can just ask for revelation and just do it, but I need to also counsel with the person. How can I be a better ministering sister to you? And is it okay if I do this or that? Please tell me how you want to be helped. And if you have an emergency or something and you need my help, you know that you can call me. But we cannot just say, yes, if you need something, call me.
Right.
We need to be more specific. We need to ask them. And something that Elena does also a lot is to ask people, how would you like me to pray for you this week, for example?
Cool.
And when you ask that kind of question to people, they open their heart to you. When you ask them, okay, what are you struggling with right now? How can I pray for you? And they will tell you what is in their heart, more than just the superficial stuff.
Tell me more about that. Where did this come from, or as far as asking people that question?
Well, actually, I give credit to my friend Abby, who...
Shout out to Abby.
Yes. She was my supervisor when I worked at FSY last summer, and on Instagram, she'll post every once in a while, like, how can I pray for you guys this week? And I'm like, that is such a beautiful question. Like, I want to use that in my ministering, and yeah, like I even will ask the people who minister to me to do the same thing to me, because I'm like, that's how I want to be ministered to. So, and yeah, it is really great because, yeah, like she said, like it helps people to open up, and it helps me love them more if I know that they're struggling with something. Like, I'm just like, oh, I can relate to you and I feel for you. So
yeah, so let's put this to a test.
Oh boy.
How would you like us to pray for you this week?
My goodness.
I don't know if you want to be that vulnerable, but we'll put you on the spot.
Well, I'm praying that the recorder's working right now,
okay, we'll pray for that.
Man, you know, where my mind goes is our little 3-year-old is she's just so sweet and wonderful, but there's just these little health concerns that have us worried,
Yeah.
And so to know that someone's is praying for my little girl, just like we're praying for her, and it's nothing like crucial or like she's not like,
Yes,
it's
we
nothing
understand.
tragic but
Yes.
anything, but as a parent, like these are the little things you worry about,
Yes. See, but we
So-
connected right now because we
there
asked
was.
you, and we're gonna pray for her.
I think we have to end it right now.
Yes.
Right?
What's her name?
Her name is Mariah.
Mariah.
That's
Okay,
right.
we'll pray for Mariah.
Well,
And we'll ask people
along
to
with
pray for her.
the leading
Yes,
saints
yes.
audience, please. That'd be great.
See, but it's so easy to connect.
Yeah.
It's so easy.
And another thing that comes to my mind with that question is sometimes we assume like, I'm a pretty good ministering brother. I say hi to them at church. I knock on their door every once in a while, send them a text. But that does naturally break someone's heart open a little bit, but how much, and maybe if they're hesitant of giving that, like, well, maybe there's some more connection, a more of a relationship to build there if they can't freely really answer that question,
Yes. And I
So-
remember hearing something very similar in a council in Salt Lake City. I can't remember where it was, but there was an area in the church that ministering brothers and sisters will ask, when I pray for you, what should I pray for? It's very similar.
Yeah.
And they said that ministering in that area was just so beautiful.
Yeah.
Everybody was just doing it differently in a higher way, they were doing it in a higher way, just like the prophet asked us to do.
That's great. I love those tips that are like simple but high impact, and it's like, I can do that. All right. I'll write that down. I'll make it happen. So, anything else with, as far as counseling with, or rather than counseling about people? Did we cover it?
I think that it has to be something that is ongoing. That every time you sit down to counsel as a family or as friends, sometimes we are worried about a friend and we want to help them. And we can sit down as friends and say, how can we help this friend more? And talk to them and then keep doing that exercise. But also as leaders, we need to keep asking questions that bring that revelation. Because if you think about it, we are never done. We are never done with the work. We are never done with ministering to each other. Sometimes we want to have a checklist and feel that we are done. But with this kind of work, I don't think that we ever are.
Yeah.
We just need to keep asking, what else can we do? How can we help each other? How can we bring more people to make covenants with the Savior? No. How can we bring more people to make covenants with the Heavenly Father through the Savior? And how can we help each other more? If we can keep asking those questions, the revelation keeps coming. And we realize that we're never done. The objective should not be to be done. The objective should be to keep working, to keep doing things, to keep helping each other until the Savior comes.
Love it. I'm curious about the part of your calling in the General Relief Society Presidency where it's like, and maybe I'm curious how these assignments come, that you suddenly find out you're going to Portugal or something. Like, how do those assignments come? And then, what's your intention with going there, or the assignment, and how did you go to walk into that world and represent that calling and who you are and all that? So.
Well, the assignments come from the president of the Quorum of the 12. So it will come from President Ballard. And it will come in a way that, let's say around September, you receive the lists of places that are assigned to Relief Society. So internationally, we will travel, each of us will travel like twice. So we will get like 6 different places of the world for Relief Society. And so depending on the time, the dates where that will happen, and depending on where we had been before, we will kind of shuffle those around between the 3 of us. Because maybe Sister Bingham already had an important assignment during that week and she couldn't make this specific assignment, but I could go to that one. And maybe Sister Eubank had already been in that. In the beginning, it's easier, but then at the end, you already went to that area you want the other person to go. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So that's the way it happens. And then once you are assigned to a specific area, a few months before, the area presidency is aware that you're going to be coming in certain day, and they contact you, and you usually go with another sister from a different organization. So I will travel with someone from primary or with someone from young women, a sister, and our husbands will come with us for the international trips. And so you counsel with the area presidency remotely, and they will tell you what things they had in mind. So you really go to help fulfill the purposes and the goals of the area presidency. And they are the ones who kind of decide the agendas and the itineraries. Of course, they counsel with you and they tell you, is this okay with you? Would you like to do some more of this or less of that? And it's very intense.
Yeah. What are some of the like concerns or topics as you're talking with that area presidency? Like, do they want you to come talk about a certain topic?
Yes.
or what feedback did you generally get in preparation for those trips?
They usually have like what they call an area plan, which is kind of like the objectives that area has, or the focuses, the areas that they are trying to help with more. And of course, children and youth and young people are always there, the sisters. So they will give you so many things. It's like a big menu of things that you do. The trips usually take about 10 to 12 days. They usually include 2 weekends. And so you go to that area. Sometimes, for example, in Mexico and Brazil, it's just one country, the whole area. So you will travel to different cities or to different countries.
Yeah.
When I went to Central America, we went to 5 different countries in a week or 10 days, and so you have to travel a lot. But then they will assign you to do instruction for leaders. You will do devotionals with the missionaries, with young adults, or with the sisters, or with families, or with youth, depending on what the priorities or the focuses were for that area. And then that's usually in the evenings. But during the day, you will also do ministering visits, or you do some public affairs visits. You will go to hospitals where the church maybe was donating equipment.
Mm-hmm.
You will even have meetings with some government officials, because the church was working with them with something. Different things. It's fascinating.
Yeah.
And it's busy.
Yeah.
You have a busy agenda.
And did you notice, I know like with some Area 70s or General Authority 70s, they become very good at just not necessarily preparing remarks, but they've sort of been in these state conference enough times that they're really ready to speak depending on, whatever the topic is.
Yes.
Did you feel like you got in that mode, or what was the preparation of speaking like?
Let me tell you, the first one was very hard for me. That was just like a month after I was sustained. I went to South America South, which I went with Sister Cordon. She was in the primary presidency back then. So we went to Argentina and Chile, and we covered a lot of territory there. But I remember seeing the itinerary and seeing, okay, I'm going to be giving 7 different messages, because even sacrament meeting,
Yeah,
on Sunday, they want you to say something. And so I said, okay, I'm going to set time apart to prepare for these messages weeks before the trip. And I tried. I sat down and tried to write something. I just couldn't.
wow.
And then I thought, okay, I'm going to have this many hours on the plane. I can prepare then, right? Nothing.
Wow.
And it was very scary, especially the first time. But it's interesting because that morning, in the middle of everything, getting ready and running to an airport or whatever, or getting on a van because you have to drive several hours, the thoughts come, but you don't really write a talk. And then you also talk to the leaders, because that's another thing that you're doing constantly, because you talk to state presidents, to sisters that are leaders at the state level or at world level, and you ask them questions. What are your concerns? What do you see? And then as you have those conversations, the talks come, the thoughts come, and then you're able to do like a little outline. And then you give your message. And that's the way it happens with those assignments. It's not like general conference.
Yeah.
But I had to learn the hard way. It was very hard the first time because I was very nervous and I felt unprepared. I felt like, oh, Lord, please forgive me because I'm not ready.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
But you get ready and he gives you the thoughts, and then you stand in front of those people and you connect with them in such a beautiful way. But I always also like to do it a little bit interactive. Yeah, I will ask questions, and depending on what they were saying, then you go from there.
Yeah,
it's not that easy, but it works because you are relying on the Spirit. You are relying that the Lord is guiding you, that he's helping you
to
connect with those people. So I didn't want to have a paper, just looking at the paper.
Yeah.
I wanted to connect.
Yeah, it's interesting how revelation or inspiration for these talks works that way, because sometimes I get the best inspiration to what I'm about to say, like right before standing up. Yes. And it's sort of like, all right, God, listen, like, can we move this around how this works? Because sometimes I'm like, why should I even prepare? Because I'm gonna,
Yes.
But there's so much faith in that process of relying on the Lord.
Yes.
That there's a deeper connection that happens when I'm in the room with these people. I can see their faces, and I have a better idea of maybe what I can speak to.
And of course, you have to keep reading your scriptures. You have to keep reading conference talks, and you need to be saying the things that the prophet is saying, for example. And so you grab something, and then you go from there, and you ask people questions regarding what the prophet just said, and it's beautiful. And the time goes so fast. That's the only complaint that I have. Too fast.
Yeah.
You start feeling that spirit. You start that conversation. You start feeling that the Lord is guiding you, and then you look at the clock and you're like, oh my goodness, I only have 3 minutes. I need to wrap up now. Yeah. It's interesting. It's different. But we can do it at every level. We should not. I think that we should not limit ourselves to a written piece of paper. To what we have written on paper.
Yeah.
Because it's different when you are in front of people, and it needs to be more natural. And it needs to be also, sometimes we want to say so much that we speak too fast, and I don't think that spirit is there when you speak too fast. And I have been an interpreter in church. It's very hard to interpret someone when they're speaking so fast. You just have to summarize and try to grab the what is more important, but you realize, okay, if this person will have spoken a little bit slower, the spirit will have been probably stronger.
Yeah.
So it's not the amount of things that you say, it's how you say it also. And to really try to connect with people instead of telling them 10 things that you need to do in order to fix this issue or whatever you're talking about.
Tell me about like visiting these different areas. Obviously, you're literally a general leader, but you want to be a personal leader, when you're there. And so it's sometimes easy to just give the talk, sit down and, catch the plane and go to the next place. But I mean, what was that like trying to connect with people, or was there anything specific you did in order to do that, or understand more about what's going on in the church in that area?
Yeah, it depends on of course, the situation, but many times we really try to be there early so you can actually embrace sisters. And that's another thing, that as a woman leader, you can give hugs to the sisters.
You've given a lot of hugs over 5 years.
Yeah, thousands of hugs.
Wow.
And you can actually tell them, thank you for coming, and they will tell you something. So when I will get up in front of them, I could already connect with many of them because I already had a little conversation with them. I had friends already in there. And then at the end, of course, you stay and you talk to the ones that come to talk to you, and you embrace them, you listen to them, you cry with them. But sometimes, of course, you have to leave immediately because you had to catch a plane or something. But I try to do that, and I still do it, you know, because people still come to me, and I don't think I'm different from them, but I know that a hug or a conversation with me could make a difference just because of the calling that I had, not because of me.
Yeah.
But I know that people feel closer to the Savior when you are in those callings, and every one of us, because we are disciples of Christ, we can help people feel closer to the Savior by paying attention to them, by listening to them, by embracing them.
Yeah, awesome. So Elena, I'm curious, you mentioned you were an FSY counselor, and that's sort of this new, obviously for the youth, it's sort of this new program experience for them, but the church is making more and more of a push to get FSY counselors, both, and you have to be a single adult, right? Is that, and in a certain age range?
Yeah, I think it's until you're 30 or something. Yeah.
Gotcha. So what was that experience like in general, and why should others consider doing it?
I absolutely loved it. I don't know. Have you seen The Chosen?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. We're obsessed with The Chosen.
I'm offended you didn't ask about
it. So when I was being trained to be a counselor, I think it might have been Sister Corden that showed us a clip of The Chosen, and it was the one where oh my gosh, is it the paralytic that it gets lowered into the roof?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And like the disciples, like Mary Magdalene and Peter, are just watching. And I think Peter says something like, "Can you believe that we're here for this?" And Mary's like, "Yes." And so I think that is such a perfect like analogy of what it's like to be a counselor, because we're just kind of sitting there watching the Lord do the work. Which is great, because I was like, I don't know if I'm like really going to be good enough to be a counselor, but yeah, I literally just like got to take care of my girls and watch the Savior change their lives. And yeah, I mean, it was just so amazing. Like, especially with one of the weeks that I was there, one of my boys was just like sobbing when we were all saying goodbye. And it was just so beautiful to see how much the Spirit had touched him, and how, like, I mean, how they wanted to like serve missions and stuff. Like, I mean, it was just so awesome. Like, and again, I feel like I didn't do anything. Like, I was just there watching the Savior do it, but it was great. Yeah. And I would also push people to have their kids go, because I know that like sometimes that's a struggle to get their kids to actually participate in those things, but like that's who it's really about, and the counselors are just there to have fun with them. But yeah,
I often talk about leadership as the opportunity to stand on the sidelines of the atonement. You know, you're right there. You're not necessarily doing it, but you have a front row seat of some remarkable miracles that happen in the lives of individuals, right? So
again, sometimes when we are leaders, and this is a leadership position to be a counselor in those activities, again, we think that we have to do everything. But it's just that you prepare enough. You prepare for the things that you can do, but you let the Lord do the miracles, and you just watch. And I think that happens at every level. You know, that we need to just trust that the Lord knows what he's doing, and that this is his work, and that we are just helping. We are just watching. We are just being part of it, having that privilege to be part of it.
Yeah. Awesome. What else are we missing before we wrap up? Any topic, principle, story that must be told?
So something that I've done, because I've been working with teenagers for like the past 2 years now, and something that I've tried to do is be really inclusive with my words, just really intentional about like what I say. So for example, like I'll try to say your family instead of your parents, because I know that not everybody has both their parents, or they live with their grandparents or something. And my mom is really good at that too. Like, because even like if she went to go speak at a single adult ward, for example, like she acknowledges that some people there have been divorced or something. Like not everybody there is in the same boat completely. So she's really good about being really inclusive with her language too.
Yes, I think that is so important, because words matter and they have power. And many people in the church, unfortunately, they feel that they don't fit because they don't have a perfect family, whatever that means, because no family is perfect. We all struggle with something. But sometimes when we speak to people from the pulpit or in lessons, we assume like everybody's married, everybody has children, everybody has a wonderful, companion in their life. But that doesn't happen with everyone. And if we try to tailor our messages in a way that they will apply to anyone, even to a child, a 5-year-old child, then I think that we are including everyone, and everyone feels part of it. And this is something that I honestly feel that we could do better. All of us, I can do better too. That when I give a talk in sacrament meeting, I need to remember the children. I don't necessarily say, okay, I'm talking to the children right now, but to tell a story or to do it in a way that even a child will connect with you, and then everybody connects. To think about everyone, not just one demographic of people.
Yeah, I think it really causes a leader to analyze, how are we, even to the advice that maybe as you ask someone to speak in sacrament meeting, how can you encourage maybe that of thinking of the different dynamics that happen in that ward, right?
Yeah. For example, sometimes we say we need to teach our children. When you say something like that, you're only talking to the ones that have children at home.
Yeah.
But if you say, let's help the rising generation, even a 12-year-old can help the rising generation. First of all, with her friends. She can also help someone who is 17. She can help her siblings. She can help her neighbors. someone that probably their children are not at home anymore, she can still help the rising generation in the world. She, as a primary leader, or her grandchildren, or whatever, or someone who has never been married, or they don't have children, they can also help the rising generation. So if you just change a few words, you are including everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Powerful. Tell me, Elena, you started a podcast a few years ago, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And it's been sort of an ongoing project. And what's the story behind that?
So honestly, it was when my mom had her calling, she and I would just have conversations about really deep things. And so I was like, we should start a podcast so more people can hear what you have to say. But because she still had her calling at that point, I couldn't really use my mom back then. So I was like, well, I'll just start a podcast by myself so that I can practice.
And you interviewed your dad, though, right?
Yeah,
you got him in the mix, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, he was the first one, the guinea pig.
Yes. But yeah, it's been so fun. To just talk to my friends, because I've told people before that I love podcasts where it's just two friends talking, capturing that I think is just
or
awesome.
Three friends.
Yes.
Like in this case, yes.
But yeah, I don't know. I just love I love being able to capture us laughing together and stuff. And so I was like, I think it'd be awesome to start a podcast with my bestie, who's my mom. And yeah, we've invited some of my friends on and we've had laughs with them too. And it's just been really fun. Yeah.
So
cool.
After I was released, I'm a co-host now.
Yeah.
Nice.
Imagine that. Yeah. But
Nice.
Tell them the name of it.
Yeah, it's called the Consecrating Your Life, which we chose because we love the topic of consecration. It's something that I feel like we don't really talk about very often in the church, and it's something that we covenant to do in the temple. And so, yeah, we just try to tie every topic to that because it is about dedicating your life to our Heavenly Father. So,
Nice.
yeah.
So anywhere people are listening to this, they can probably search
Yes.
Consecrate Your Life and
pretty much
find
on
it.
any app. Yeah, Spotify or whatever.
It's all there.
Yeah.
The rundown. Cool. Well, I really appreciate you two being willing to chat with me, and we explored some fun things.
Yes.
And I learned a lot, and I think a lot of people will benefit as well. So I'll start. I've got one final question. I'll let you each answer it solo. But Elena, with reflecting on your time as a leader, as a YSA, especially maybe in the FSY, how has being a leader helped you become a better follower of Jesus Christ?
Mm-hmm. Oh, I love that the Savior, even though he was a king when he was on the earth, he never sat on a throne. He was always doing the dirty work and getting to know people and being friends with everybody. So by me trying to emulate him, I try to do the same thing. I try to make it about other people, and it's not about me. And I do fail at that sometimes, but I just, when I try to be like him, I try to turn outward instead of inward, just like Elder Bednar said in his talk, Character of Christ, where it's not about his suffering, but he'll focus on other people's suffering, and by doing that, I'm able to help myself when I focus on other people. So just where it says in the Bible, if you if you lose yourself in the service of others, you find yourself. So that's what I've been able to do with my own life. But yeah.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Appreciate that. Reyna, how about you, reflecting on the last 5 years or so in that General Relief Society calling? How has being a leader helped you become a better follower of Jesus Christ?
Well, I think that one of the things that I learned, even traveling the world and talking to people in different places, is how much Heavenly Father loves his children. You see people, in places where there is a lot of poverty, a lot of problems, but they still are able to manage. They still get that guidance, that help from heaven, and they still are able to help each other. So I have learned that we are truly children of God, and that he's aware of each of his children. And I also learned that Jesus Christ is really the source of everything good that we have, and that we can come to him and we can receive strength and power from him if we just turn to him and we just try to follow his commandments. So it has made me, all this time has made me be more aware of other people, their needs, and also of the help that I receive from heaven, because I don't think I would have been able to do anything, or even now in my life, without his help.